plan for everything, but you can be ready for anything. That's where we come in. Northwest Insurance Agency covers the wait, what? Moments in life with real coverage, real people, and real fast help. We offer sombrero-style coverage that protects your possessions, your loved ones, and everything else that fits under a sombrero. Call us today for a quote at 855-887-5656 or visit us at nwagencies.com.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I am Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. We're presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency. Give Mark Villasana a call, 214-352-5656. Have him look at your insurance today. We have a lot to get to on the podcast. 2 commitments for SMU football in the class of 2026 as the Mustangs finish up their month of June in recruiting. So a lot to kind of talk about, reset, all of those things as SMU now will await multiple top targets making decisions. And I've spent most of Monday on the phone working sources, trying to get a good base of reset where SMU stands with a lot of these top targets, as they did get 3 official visitors on campus this weekend. We'll talk about them, and we will also kind of look ahead to the main top targets still out there, still on the board for SMU football, as they now, like many colleges around the country, look to their top targets and kind of see where they stand on decisions and start to kind of plan for that future and what that looks like, because there's a lot that are still, waiting to kind of feel, as far as where things stand with some of these top targets. So we'll run those down in just a minute. But before we do, I do want to remind you guys that Wednesday, June 25th, is Manny's 20th anniversary. They're going to have a bunch of specials. So make sure you head over to any of Manny's 4 DFW locations from 3 to 6 p.m. They're going to do 20-cent 16-ounce Australias, 20-cent house margaritas, and $20 for any Tex-Mex dinner, plus a house margarita. Again, that is just from 3 to 6 p.m., but happy hour is also all day at Manny's. So you can best believe where I will be on that day. I'm getting have a little dentist appointment in the morning, and so what better way than to flash a nice smile over Manny's 20th anniversary. So make sure you say queso as well. That gets you 10% off your meal. Really excited to get to Manny's, of course, on Wednesday. And then we do have actually some really exciting events being planned at Manny's. We're going to do a live podcast, and it might just kind of be a super casual thing where if people want to listen to me blabber on, they can stop by, and we'll do that kind of on a casual basis. Or we're planning a big event, the kickoff for SMU's 2025 season. So looking forward to all the things at Manny's and celebrating 20 years with them on Wednesday. All right, 2 commitments for SMU football. If you were on theponyexpress.com, sign up for just $1 for your first week. 2 commitments that you knew were coming fairly early Sunday morning. We broke the news on the site that SMU had pulled off a flip. They did flip Ty Crethers. Now, the backstory on Ty Crethers, for those of you who don't know, is a really interesting one. He came out at SMU camp earlier this summer and went to work out for the staff and kind of showed them what he can do. And Ty did not play his junior season due to transfer rules. He's now back at Garland, and he will have a chance now to, show what he can do as a senior for Garland. His sophomore year was pretty encouraging as far as production and all those things, but his highlight tape from this past season or highlights that are on his huddle page are JV. So that's, because he was ineligible, you can play on JV and still, get your chances there. So we'll show you some of these highlights. I mean, he does make a lot of people look silly. The JV crew looked pretty silly out there at times, just his ability to make plays and make plays after the catch. But with Ty Crethers, he is somebody that SMU really likes as kind of that Roderick Daniels type of role, really kind of the replacement for him. And the thing about that is, one, people forget how kind of dramatic Roderick Daniels' recruitment was back in the day, and he ends up being one of probably the most important Dallas players to ink with SMU in modern history. I mean, think about so many plays throughout the rise of SMU over the last couple of years, or games in general, that if SMU doesn't have Roderick Daniels Jr. on the team, that they don't really happen. And so for them to get somebody that they feel like is a kind of replacement or similar player and things like that is really important. And I think looking back on the slot position in this 2026 class, Ty Crethers is obviously the opposite of what DeQuayne Prevost would have been for SMU had SMU been able to flip DeQuayne Prevost, who gets done with his Arkansas official visit, last visit of June, but had ample time to flip to SMU, and SMU was still recruiting him, and at the same time was sitting in a position with Ty Crethers where, okay, they really liked what they saw. I mean, they brought him to camp, and that June 1st or 2nd, whichever day it was, and he absolutely lit it up. And people make fun of sometimes when we in the recruiting industry will talk about players having big camps and how it's not on Friday nights. And yes, production and gameplay on Friday nights is very important. But what you can find out in these camps is how competitive a kid is, how I think just athletically how they stack up against good players. And I was standing right there. SMU was very deliberate with who Ty Crethers went up against. They would kind of say, hey, okay, all right, go up against this kid. Other kids that had FBS offers, had Power 4 offers, things like that were at camp. They wanted to make sure they were getting a good on good versus, kind of maybe what you saw in his JV tape there from this past year where he's, able to break 5 tackles on any given play. So when Ty Crethers got out there, I mean, he made contested catches. And honestly, it was a little bit, and I didn't see Roderick Daniels, or at least I should say, I don't remember Roderick Daniels going through the camp circuit or I wasn't at his camps. But I do remember him going through 7-on-7. And I remember that and watching what he could do. And while Ty is a little bit taller than Rod, I kind of got similar vibes from a contested catch perspective. I got a similar vibe of a James Prochet. So I'm really interested to see how Ty Crethers pans out for SMU. This is an important position because they did sign Dalen Singleton, who's very good straight line. They did bring in some really intriguing players that could play the slot position, especially over the next 2 years. But they needed somebody in 2026 that they got to feel good about. And instead of maybe turning the heat up on DeQuayne Prevost, and we saw SMU in 25 turn the heat up on certain guys, and it ended up panning out. Jalen Cooper, Ty Hawkins, guys like that. And they were able to kind of stake their claim to him. With DeQuayne, I feel like they could have done that, but at a certain point, you don't also want to be chasing guys. Like SMU had DeQuayne Prevost on campus probably six times over the course of just this 2025 stretch. He was there with his 7-on-7 team. He was there for an unofficial visit. He was there for another unofficial visit. He was there for his official visit. So one of those things where you got a good feel. And if you haven't seen it by this point, well, all right, we're going to move on. And so that's kind of what happened here. Ty was committed to Texas State. He went to down there for an official visit just a week before and jumped in the boat and then came back to SMU. And if things worked out, he was going to jump into the boat with SMU. So a pretty low risk player here. This isn't somebody that you're investing a bunch of funds and rev share and things like that into. So it is good from that perspective. And now you can get somebody on board already who's from Dallas. And, I just think it's a pretty safe play. It's not something that's going to blow your socks off. by any means, but he's got an intriguing story, and that's why Rhett Lashley, Rob Likens, they get paid the big bucks. Like I can tell you, Rhett Lashley is very excited about Ty Crethers. That's all I could say. They're very excited about him. So we'll see how it goes. This is a trust the coaches type of moment or a commitment in a sense, because he didn't play his junior year, first of all, or he didn't play varsity his junior year. And then, he's an underrated guy. So, I think they've earned the trust. So, and I liked what I saw from all of those things at camp. And I'm really excited to get out and watch Ty Crethers on Friday nights in the fall and see what he's got. So he could be a really nice riser. I don't think he's going to be a 4-star because of some size limitations, but a really nice riser potentially as a senior. Like if we ranked him in 89 and he went UDFA and maybe signed some tryout contract type of deals, like that would be a win for SMU. That would mean he'd be a really productive player throughout college. So we'll see how it goes. All right, that doesn't complete the 2026 wide receiver class potentially for SMU. And we'll pass along some notes here in just a second, but do want to remind you guys about our friends at Status Jet as well. We appreciate Status Jet always taking care of our On the Pony Express subscribers, listeners, all of those things, as they will give you a discount on a round trip flight when you mention On the Pony Express or code PonyUpACC. So go to statusjet.com today and get more information on how you can turn a really nice trip into the trip of a lifetime. So still some time to book those last minute 4th of July trips or get your football season plans in order, and check them out, statusjet.com, and see what they can do for you and help you get from point A to point B with that level of luxury that you'd expect. The wide receiver haul for SMU might not be complete. One prospect that did announce that he has shut down his recruitment, though, is 4-star wide receiver Chris Stewart, who's committed to Texas. SMU did bring his brother and him on campus for official visits, but truthfully, I mean, at least one of the brothers didn't want to talk about their visit, which is kind of a telling sign that maybe they didn't feel as big of a priority as you would have thought. SMU wanted Chris Stewart. They recruited Carter Stewart. They did offer him. And in the end, SMU had filled up at safety. I think they weren't going to take another safety unless it was like a really kind of high-end type of, no-brainer type of player at the safety position. And that's something that, who knows, maybe we'll see them kind of circle back on in the fall as maybe not Carter Stewart, but higher end safeties. That's the thing with this whole summer, and we'll kind of briefly touch on it at the end here, but it's going to be very interesting to see from a rev share perspective. Will the word get out on certain schools with NIL promises and things like that? Because all these kids talk, and they talk a lot. And it's just going to be interesting to see how all of those things, really happen for these programs and things like that. So SMU is still very much in the running for 4-star wide receiver Jaden Warren. And on Tuesday, I'm dropping some notes kind of on top targets, like every single top target that's still uncommitted. And I'll have some exclusive notes on Jaden Warren as well for SMU fans who are at ontheponyexpress.com. And then, of course, SMU did host 4-star wide receiver and SMU commit Xavier Barnett over the weekend. They did get a chance to lock him in, as well as 4-star wide receiver Ja'Kai Anderson, who flipped from LSU. Ja'Kai was not in town this weekend for his official visit, but did tell On3 and Rivals, and we'll talk about that merger and kind of what it means, as we get closer on July 1. But Ja'Kai Anderson did tell Rivals and On3 that he has shut down his recruitment and he is locked in with SMU. So that is a huge deal. He's one of the top players in Louisiana and a really, really good prospect. And Zach Turner has set a commitment date as well. He is not a wide receiver, but he is a tight end, and he is getting closer to his decision. Right now, the buzz is around Miami and kind of the Hurricanes there. I just think that they've really kind of locked in on him as a true top target. And meanwhile, for SMU, I mean, they're not at the point where they're going to go over the top. I think for Zach Turner, he's somebody that they've recruited for a long time, but he's also a tweener. He could be a wide receiver, could be a tight end. And, when you're SMU and you've got to make roster decisions that are really, really difficult to make, that's the hard part about this. And Miami does have more resources than SMU. I don't think that's anything dramatic or controversial to say. And so there is some of that playing into this, I think, at least. But it's still one of those positions where if you're a Duncanville player or if you're SMU and you're trying to make these inroads with Dallas and continue these inroads, it would have been nice to see this one be pulled off. I'm beyond interested to see how everything with Zach Turner just goes in terms of like where he plays at the next level. And honestly, truthfully, he could be somebody that if he played defense and went all in, he might be really, really special at it. So shout out the Kiki Burns prophecy that didn't end up happening for SMU. But, Zach Turner is an intriguing athlete, one that they wanted. Right now, the buzz is around Miami, though, from what I understand. So we'll see how it goes there. But SMU did pick up a second commitment, and this one happened earlier in the day on Sunday, and I actually spoke with him that morning. And Eddie Kelly Jr. announced his commitment to SMU, a really, really intriguing player for SMU to bring in as the second running back in this class of 2026. Remember, they have Christian Rhodes, 4-star running back, committed, and he is the guy that is going to be their kind of bell cow here and their top player in the class of 2026 when it comes to the running back position. And to get a guy like Eddie Kelly, who had over 2,100 all-purpose yards, if you're watching on YouTube, yes, taking a kickoff return, back for a touchdown right off the opening jump there, had 25 total touchdowns. Here is your Braden Westy type of player. I mean, he will draw some Brashard Smith comparisons. You want to know what, honestly, I think might be an interesting project for anybody who is listening out there? I'd love to see hit rate on power 4 running backs from Dallas versus power 4 running backs from Houston. I don't know. There's just something about Houston. There's a little bit more of like grit to them at times at the running back position, at least from my experience. I don't know. There's something a little different from time to time with Houston running backs. I mean, it just seems like there's almost not enough coverage down there about them, because Eddie Kelly's got over 2,100 yards. He's got some power conference offers. He obviously ends up committing to SMU here. He took a trip to Washington State last week, but very little like buzz around him for a guy who has a 10.6 100-meter time. He people don't know this, publicly, but multiple 4.4s at SMU camp. Just a really, really productive player on Friday nights. Just probably doesn't have the elite measurables. I mean, look at that, jumping through the air and making a guy miss still. I think here's your sleeper pick. Here is a guy who could very well end up being maybe, I mean, and I don't like speaking for our rankings team because I am not in the room. They have to grade based on who is going to get to the NFL. That is the least controversial way to try to be right, I think. And it's sometimes 5'10", 180 pounds is just not necessarily going to do it for people. But this is a really exciting player. I think he's got a lot of upside. He could have a really strong senior year. Maybe he slips into that non-on 300 or non-rivals 300 4-star type of player. I mean, I just think SMU's done a really good job scouting the running back position over the last couple of years, at least in terms of guys who end up being risers. Like, we know Derek McFall's a really good football player. We know chunky Dramico Green looks like he's going to be a really good football player. I mean, there's just guys that have a lot of buzz around them. They've got to put it together now at the next level and kind of go from there. But I am really, really intrigued to see how Eddie Kelly's college career goes, because he just looks like a really good football player. So we shall see as they look to, obviously hang on to Christian Rhodes. They didn't want to bring in somebody who would be, scary and all that stuff. And, allow schools to kind of kick the door in on that recruitment and try to change things. But Christian's also said he's got his recruitment shut down, which is a good thing as well. So those are the two commitments from this recruiting weekend. Big news there, in my opinion, to kind of obviously just take care of business on your last official visit. We can get a little bit of momentum. Up to 18 commitments now. They're at 19 or 20 in the On3 top 25. So a top 25 recruiting class leaving June. Really impressive stuff from the staff. There's going to be a lot of shakeup to the rankings over the course of the next couple of weeks and month, really, as kids start committing and things like that, and guys start flying off the board. And that's why it's important to be at ontheponyexpress.com. But it's also important to make sure you give Mark Villasana and Northwest Insurance Agency a call.
If you're a Texas contractor and your insurance guy doesn't speak your language, fire him. We specialize in Spanish-speaking tradesmen. Call today and we'll review your current policy for free. No pressure, just straight answers. You've seen the guy that's your bro. That's us. And just like it protected my grandfather from the sun, we protect you from life's challenges. I'm Mark Villasana, owner and agency principal with Northwest Insurance.
I actually heard about NW agencies through a friend of mine who's been using them for years. Honestly, I've been really impressed. They made the whole process so much simpler than I expected. I was always used to dealing with a lot of back and forth, but with NW it was straightforward, and I always felt like they had my best interests at heart.
We're a full-service independent agency. That means we don't work for a single carrier, we work for you. We've got access to over 100 carriers, so whether you're insuring your home, your truck, or your electrical business, we'll find the coverage that fits your needs and your budget.
It's been a game changer, really. I used to worry a lot about getting the right coverage, especially with my business and home, but now I feel much more confident. They helped me understand my options and made sure I had the right policy for both my business and personal needs.
We specialize in helping hardworking folks, contractors, tradesmen, laborers, the people who keep Texas running. Whether you're a framer in Floresville, a roofer in Seguin, or a plumber in San Antonio, we'll walk you through the process in plain English or Espanol.
We'll pour you a cup of coffee, talk you through your policy, and make sure you leave with more protection and more peace of mind than you came in with.
This is Northwest Insurance. We've got you covered.
Northwest Insurance.
There you go. New commercial dropping from Mark Villasana and company over there. All right. Appreciate Northwest Insurance Agency. Look, the SMU offensive staff is looking to close on a couple top targets. We did talk about the wide receiver position. We talked about tight ends, running backs done, quarterbacks done, all those things. The offensive line is the next intriguing position for SMU. They've got Papunga Katoa. They've also seen some of their top targets come off the board. We talked about that earlier this year or earlier this month, last week. Couple of top targets are coming off the board here soon. One is another piece of bad news here that is coming in, but Avery Morcho, the Ridge Point offensive tackle, it's been predicted by Texas A&M or to Texas A&M by myself, Steve Wiltfong, the whole crew over there. Texas A&M obviously is on a heater right now. I think they have the number 3 class, maybe number 2. If you wanted a hot take, it wouldn't shock me if they ended up with the number 1 class in the country. They have a lot of momentum right now, and they're in the SEC. And Avery was a top target for SMU, but this one looks like it's going the Aggies' way, and I bet you it happens sooner rather than later. So that leaves Evan Goodwin, the 4-star offensive tackle out of Bauxite, Arkansas. Evan is coming off of a Mississippi State official visit, but there is a lot of questions left around what is he going to do. But talking with a couple sources, if there's a guy that, look, and I mean, straight up, this hasn't been a great run for SMU's offensive line recruiting, but if there's a guy that right now I would say keep an eye on and circle, it'd be Evan Goodwin. I just think from what I'm hearing, there's some confidence here. I never really heard much confidence around Avery outside of that SMU was right there with Texas A&M. I feel confident saying SMU is going to finish up as a runner-up to Texas A&M if this decision and this whole trend holds, and obviously they got to get him through signing day and things like that. But Evan Goodwin is one where there's been buzz around SMU. if there's a team that in this recruitment, and whether he ends up going to SMU or not, I don't think this is outlandish to say, and probably pretty true, but SMU finally got Evan Goodwin onto campus in the spring for a visit. And since that visit, since he spent the time around the program, he really came away impressed with the program and just the overall vibe around SMU. And he took some early visits to SMU, but it really just hadn't turned around. And they went and saw him in January, and they went and saw him in the spring as well. And SMU really turned up the heat, and it paid off, and they got an official visit. Now, he also was able to visit Oklahoma State. I believe he visited Wisconsin. He might have visited, he visited Oklahoma State, Missouri, Mississippi State, and SMU. And talking with people around this one, this is probably it is going to be a hard one to predict, because you have SMU, who is the big city. I think it's safe to say they're the only big city in this recruitment. The other schools are probably a little bit more of Evan's speed as far as country, Mississippi State, Oklahoma State, I guess Columbia, Missouri isn't country, or maybe it is. I don't know. I've never been there, but and Madison, Wisconsin's, kind of in the middle of nowhere too. But it's a really interesting recruitment, because SMU has prioritized him in a big way. I think ever since that spring, they have just kept the foot on the gas, and they've really, really, really been pushing hard for him. They don't necessarily have the longest standing push on him, if that makes sense. But I just don't think he was as open to Dallas until he spent those couple of days. I think he spent 2 full days at SMU. And ever since that time, he's had them among the top schools. And obviously he's got 4 schools, here in the mix. And it's going to be really interesting to see what he does. So he is going to take a vacation. And then after his vacation, he's going to be looking into where he'll go and where he wants to commit. Hopefully he gets it done before the season, is what he said. If not, then I would be taking game day visits to see which places I like better. So Evan does want to be sure. That's one thing he's told me. He's always wanted to be locked in with his decision. And so he's taking his visits, and he's looking to find out what's what. So keep an eye on him. I know I just rambled a lot about Evan Goodwin, but he is a top target for SMU, as is Drew Evers. And I'm once again really interested to see what Drew does. He's fresh off of a Texas A&M official visit, and he has been predicted to Ohio State earlier this month. I can tell you that Ohio State was the leader coming off that visit, and the Buckeyes had the buzz. Now, is that visit high? Is that obviously Ohio State's an impressive program? I'm not, saying anything other than the obvious there, but visit highs still do have an impact. Columbus is a long way from Flower Mound, Texas. You do have Texas A&M, where his parents went to school, sitting in the mix, fully on in the mix of this one. I don't think LSU's pushing for him that hard. And SMU, meanwhile, is making him I've said this before. I think he is probably the highest of high priority players for SMU on the offensive side of the ball. Local kid, family with SMU ties, it has been on campus. I don't know how many visits we have logged on his profile. We have 5. It wouldn't shock me if he's been on campus a dozen times, and we just didn't know, or what have you. So SMU's got to get this one done if they're going to, look at making a true huge splash at the end of June. This is your offensive splash, is Drew Evers. And at the same time, you are battling Texas A&M, you are battling Ohio State, and, LSU and Penn State kind of involved, but I just don't think they're factors in this one. But he can now sit down with his parents and really make this final decision and see what school he's really feeling here. This is going to be a really interesting decision, just because in this day and age of rev share, this is one of SMU's top guys. And when you make somebody your top guy like SMU did with Ja'Kai Anderson, you can sometimes overcome other programs that don't have the rev share plan in place for those players. So they can say, hey, yeah, you're one of our top guys, but then the rev share agreement might not show that. So that's the hardest, especially this being the first cycle. That's why this cycle is so hard to predict. I mean, it truly is. So we are that's kind of the group on the offense that is still kind of up for decisions coming down the pipeline, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm missing somebody. And then on defense, I can tell you SMU's pretty much done, unless it's Landon Barnes committing to SMU. They've had some other top targets that they've kind of hung around for that they're going to recruit into the fall and kind of see how the chips fall. But they're very comfortable with the class they have on defense. They have addressed linebacker with Isaiah Young. I think they're going to get Kenneth Goodwin at this stage, the 4-star linebacker from California. I think they're going to pull that one off. And he has a decision date set for July 1st. And if things keep going in the right direction there, SMU will win out. The big wild card is Landon Barnes. Will he leave home? He's probably one of SMU's top guys as far as what they're trying to do as far as rev share there. Ole Miss has really inserted itself there in a big way. Randall Joyner just made a move on that one. And I would say right now, this is a SMU Ole Miss battle. His family is from Louisiana, so they do have some ties there. But there's Ohio State. There's LSU kind of hanging around. I don't think he's going to go to Washington. And I just kind of think he does want to take a Texas official visit. I can tell you what, I just don't think Reggie Samples is going to let him take a fall official visit. He's either going to be done with recruiting before the season, or he's going to be done after and not allowed to touch it during the season. And we'll kind of see what happens there. A couple of news and notes, a couple of nuggets and notes, I guess. Texas is trending for Calvin Thomas, the 4-star linebacker out of Cy Ranch. I don't know if that's like a surefire thing right now, but he did go on an official visit to Texas this past weekend. It's obviously worth noting, and we'll see kind of if Texas ends up, putting the pedal down there. That recruitment's just kind of been interesting. All I know is that SMU continues to talk with the family and his representation and things like that around what's going on. So, but for the most part on defense, we're pretty much done. So they're very comfortable with who they have. They know that they'll also have to plug some spots here and there with portal additions, and then they're going to, recruit some guys and just see where the chips fall. If somebody doesn't like their situation, if coaching, changes happen, things like that, SMU can be ready to pounce and go from there. So, the thing with recruiting right now is schools are all trying to learn what the best way to go about this rev share thing is with high school guys, but you can't screw yourself out of money in 6 months when your players are ready to make decisions on their futures. If the portal is still kind of in that window and in that zone, you can't be out of money to promise. So it's a really precarious spot. That's why SMU's coaches get paid the big bucks. And for the most part, I would say it's a pretty smart bet to bet on them when it comes to roster management. I just think they're a bright bunch and they know what they're doing. So look, we will keep you guys locked in on all the news and notes as it comes in at ontheponyexpress.com. Subscribe for just $1. Before we go, do want to remind you guys, of course, about the Thomas Auto Group. We appreciate their support of the On the Pony Express podcast. Head up 75 to McKinney and visit their Ford, Subaru, Volkswagen, and Mitsubishi dealerships and find out about the Thomas Promise today.
At Thomas Auto Group, we created the Thomas Promise exclusively for our customers.
Because we believe our customers are the best. And the best customers deserve the best from us, too.
That's right. The Thomas Promise includes the low price promise.
Next is the pre-owned promise.
And the 72-hour exchange promise.
And finally, the 100% customer satisfaction promise. So shop Thomas Auto Group today, right here in McKinney. home of the Thomas Promise.
That's right. Thomas Promise. Appreciate Brandon Thomas and his whole family for supporting us at On the Pony Express. Make sure you guys give Mark Villasana a call, 214-352-5656, or email him info@nwagencies.com. Learn more about what they can do for you in the insurance space. Appreciate Status Jet as well. Manny's, all of our sponsors. And look, we have got a jam-packed week for you guys. We're dropping our interviews with SMU's about half the coaching staff we talked to. We talked to Sean Griswold as well. We'll get you that one tomorrow. And I'll be here to kind of pop in and chat a little bit about the latest news around SMU and recruiting and all these things as we drop these interviews. So really excited about them. I hope you guys enjoy it, and head over to ontheponyexpress.com as well and join us over there. It's a lot of waiting for the season to ramp up and things like that, of course, about a month-ish away from fall camp. But we will be with you every step of the way until the fun starts again very soon. So I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast, and we will catch you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on 3 and on Instagram at on3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.